Well, hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn, and my very good chum. We can say that now, can't we? Errol Musk down in South Africa. How are you, Errol?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I am amazing. And I tell you what, people have been writing in their droves saying how much they're enjoying these conversations. A number of art lovers, however, have pointed out that that glorious picture behind you, which we've always called a Miro, is not a Miro at all, but a Kandinsky.
Okay. I've got Moreau's book, of colored prints,
Right.
and I've a big book, and I'm planning to somehow one day frame them, and put them all over the walls because they're so good.
Yeah.
I've copied a few of them. I did a restaurant once, and they wanted a theme, so I thought, well, I'll just copy all Moreau's, some of Moreau's work, and put it in their restaurant. And it was a tremendously attractive finish to the restaurant. We did it on the walls,
Yeah.
you
Oh no,
know.
I love it. You know Moreau like I know Moreau. Oh, what a girl. It's got to be good. Anyway, I love the fact that people are so good and so observant. They look at these things. But yes, it is indeed a Kandinsky. Other artwork is available, which is always a thrill. We've been talking about Elon and his various political aspects at the moment. And obviously, he was there with Trump. And last time we were talking offline, we speak offline as well as online is good, about Elon's influence on the world stage. Talk to me about that.
Ooh, I mean, well, it was maybe at least 5 years ago that the Forbes people said that Elon has four times more influence on the stock market in America than Bill Gates. But that, of course, would be much more now because I think Bill Gates doesn't have much influence anymore, and he has at least twice as much influence as Warren Buffett. So that gives you some idea. Elon can't just make a statement like, he likes, Wimpy bar or Wimpy or something like that because everybody will rush to go and get a Wimpy. And on the other hand, if he said he doesn't like, you know, Wimpy, then nobody will go there anymore. So it's a bit of a problem. But, bless him. I mean, he's very well-meaning, Elon, and he would never do anything underhand. I know him so well. I wish he would do something a bit underhand, but just so that he can be a bit more human. But no, he has a lot of influence. And as Putin said recently, quite recently, last month or 2 months ago, that the US can't move without first coming to terms with Elon. And it wasn't. It was last year. I think it was last year. No, yes, last year that Starlink was not being paid. They'd originally been requested by the US military to provide the Ukraine with Starlink. And of course, Starlink is a business. And of course, it costs a great deal of money. I mean, we're talking about a lot of money. And they didn't pay Elon. So he just simply disconnected the Ukraine. And in the middle of everything, disconnected them, you see. So they went back to him and said, immediately went to him with the top people, so-called, and said to him that he must please reconnect. He said, well, you owe me $400 million, so I'm not going to do that unless you give me $400 million. I have to pay for all this, I'm not doing it for free. I have to pay people, which is, common sense. Anyway, they then entered into an agreement with him that by June, as it happened, June the 11th, an important date, that was the date that Elon left South Africa to go to America as a 17-year-old. But anyway, by June the 11th last year, they would give him the 400 million. So he then agreed to reconnect Ukraine. But later on, when he discovered that Ukraine, with the assistance of maybe NATO or something, and America was going to bomb the Russian fleet in Sevastopol, he promptly disconnected them from being able to communicate for that. And I agree with him. He said not prepared to be party to something like that. And so, yeah, he's an important person. And the big problem with him is, that he operates from being correct and being right. He doesn't operate from being wrong. And so it's quite difficult to argue with him, and he's very fair. I mean, he even gave this Lemon go, Lemon or Lemon, a chance to go onto internet. I mean, a real stupid kind of character. And everything, about him just doesn't click with me anyway. Just me, maybe.
Yeah.
And this guy, he agreed even to have an interview with Elon, and Elon agreed to have an interview with him. And this guy came along with question cards and tried to corner Elon, which promptly we failed, miserably. And I mean, this was like, we're not talking about David and Goliath. We're talking about an ant and Goliath, or something. I don't know. Anyway, Elon is not mean, but he looked at this guy and he said, "Look, this is not going to work. You can't come on this thing with preconceived wrong ideas." And he just cancelled the guy. And I believe he was going to be paid $8 million a year, but he wanted much more, which is quite odd to me. But anyway, he's getting nothing now. And he has a podcast
it is so silly.
with
And
about
people
3 watches.
I always say people should question everything, having preconceived ideas. You have to have an open mind and also to be fair to people, to give them a platform. And that's what I love about our conversation, is that we don't have a time limit as such. You come back on every day, which is lovely, but it means we can unpack things in your words as opposed to what everybody's preconceptions and often misconceptions are about you.
Well, yes. I mean, obviously, there's always misconceptions. I mean, pick up a tabloid and read about the movie stars, and I read yesterday that I shouldn't say something as crappy as this, but David, no, not Cowell, what's his name? Simon Cowell is dead. So what, he's a weird character, but I mean, I don't want to see him dead, and then it turned out it was a fake,
Yes.
So
there's often this fake, that the dead celebrity fake news hits the headlines all of the time, and whoever it is,
yeah.
and all this is clickbait. So the advertisers get people coming to their page. It's all completely fake. He's alive and kicking, and we know Simon well. But you're right; they always do that.
No, I mean, but it's not nice. It's nasty. This thing called karma. And you don't want to, invite karma. I totally believe in that karma. There's something up there. That's watching us, and I feel, and for some reason, and of course, people like Richard, what's his name, Dawkins,
Yes.
he says, no, we are just totally ourselves, there's nothing else, and the guy's he's had books written about himself, about him, and he's written books. The guy's a first-class nitwit, and I mean, it's just so nonsense to presume that you can make a comment to the effect that this is how it is. Nobody knows how it is. So, no. I think there's something up there having a good look at us all the time.
Yeah.
We don't know what it is.
And are the Musk family a religious family?
Yes, definitely. May was a Sunday school teacher. We all, we're not. I as a child, I went to church regularly, mainly because I discovered it was a great social thing to be able to go and meet people. And I mean, obviously, I believed in the things they talked about. I mean, I mean, nothing, that I just believed in the things they said. You must do good. You must try and honor your parents, and all that sort of stuff. I mean, obviously. And you always came away from a sermon with those days with a little bit of a lift, And but I also liked going there because of the other kids that were there, and I would meet a lot of friends and a lot of girlfriends, And I actually became what we called, what was it called again? The guild, the church guild of youth guild. And I became like president of the youth guild when I was probably in grade 12 or so, thereabouts. And so I used to go a lot. And, the religion side of it was sort of always there, but there was also the human side to it. And these days, church and stuff has kind of become more difficult. If I go from where I live, I mean, I'm living in a country town, a sermon, the chap comes along to give us a sermon about once every month or something. And, one doesn't always make that. Sometimes I've been, but when I go to America, my daughter Alexandra has converted to Catholicism because her family, the Stuarts, are from the Stuart line in Scotland, and they are, really serious Catholics. The ones who wanted to restore Catholicism to England and all that sort of stuff a few hundred years ago. And so when I'm there, I go with them quite often, to the mass and all that sort of stuff, which I think is wonderful. It's very enlivening experience, to say the least.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And is Elon religious? Did he get the bug
Oh,
from
yes.
May and you?
Well, yes, Elon, of course, in the youthful time of 20s and 30s, it became sort of infra to say, oh, I'm religious. It's sort of it's more popular to say, oh, no, I don't believe in anything, or I'm an atheist, But that's not Elon. So as a child, as a student, I remember him saying to me once, what's this? I was probably discussing church or something. I don't know what I was discussing, something like that. And he said to me, Dad, let me tell you, there's no atheists at exam time. No atheists. That's the only person I've ever heard use that phrase is Elon. No atheists at exam time. I also found, as a pilot, I'm quite a prolific pilot. I've owned about 40 aircraft over the years, over 50 years. And, you know, so I've been up in the air many times with people who were quite frightened. And, when anything sort of untoward happens, a storm or something like that, again, I'd say there's no atheists flying in airplanes up there. No atheists. No atheists.
It's a very. I've often wondered, and I've asked various religious people that I know, including the Queen, what used to be the former Majesty, the Queen Elizabeth, her chaplain, the royal chaplain, wonderful chap called Roger Hall, and I was asking him about prayer and just how it works in practice, because how does God decide? There's so much misery in the world at the moment, and if God basically, how does he pick which prayers to answer, which not to? What are your views?
Well, he's probably got a big switchboard. No, I don't know. Look, we don't know. We simply don't know. And when you watch a few of is it Brian Cox and Roger Penrose and stuff, and you watch their talks about the universe and things like that, which I'm sure you've done, and these guys are super brilliant, and then you get this sort of really insignificant feeling of what we are. I mean, we're a planet on an unknown, completely irrelevant galaxy. We're not even near anything important in our galaxy. We're one of apparently, I hate to say the word, billions of galaxies. It's all kind of, let's not think about it, type of thing. So if you're able to, come up with a conclusion like Richard Dawkins has done, well, thank you. He must have some direct line to something. But I mean, he's actually stupid. I mean, we have absolutely no idea who we are. We have no idea why we're here. We don't know where we came from. The Encarta encyclopedia I read when the children had it said that Cro-Magnon man or Cro-Magnon man appeared suddenly 12,000 years ago from nowhere. That's who we are, with a bigger brain and look just like us. And so before that, if that's, I assume it's fairly true. And so we have no idea. We have no idea what we're here. We told Roger Penrose, is incredibly smart guy, I hope he's still around. He said that we won't be here very long. Pretty soon, in galactic terms, we'll be gone. No one will ever, or if there's anybody else out there, will know, even though we ever existed. And so that's pretty crappy to start with, because, that's not very nice. And one hopes there's some sort of a record somewhere. Somebody's keeping a record somewhere. Elon's attitude is, look, I mean, this gives you a much better idea. Elon is actually hell-bent on the idea that we've got to get to another planet to ensure that the human race survives. I mean, who the hell thinks like that? The rest of them all thinking about their back pocket or something. But Elon's saying, I'm going to use the money to try and get us into a situation where at least we live on two planets, so that if one of us go, the ELE, what's it called, extinction level event, is over our heads all the time. And I mean, he wants to do that. He wants to ensure that if we all get, wiped out, it's a terrible thought, that at least we're on some other planet where we can move on or something,
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, if there's that Norman equation, I think it's called the Norman equation, where this very smart guy took all the numbers of galaxies and all the potential numbers of planets and this and the other. They made this long equation on the basis of the very least possibility of everything. How many planets out there would have people like us on it? And I think finally he came to 100,000. There's 100,000 planets based on the absolute least likelihood. He came out to 100,000 planets out there just like us.
Right. And it has to be right, doesn't it? I think I always say it must be arrogant to think there's not life on other planets. And you say 100,000.
I mean, it's
what
ludicrous.
do we know? There's basically enough source for life. We've worked out there might be water and other elements that,
Yes,
that could enable life to exist. What are your views?
Yes, of course. I mean, life on Earth consists of flora and fauna. Now, the flora are the dominant life species on the planet. The second dominant species is the fauna. That's us. So really, that's another form of life. Is the flora, and there's no doubt about it. I mean, if you come to another planet and you find flora, in other words, trees or plants of some kind, well, that's life, and we just can't get there at this point in time. We're trying to. I'm fascinated by the extent to which it's improved over the last, I would say, 60 years. I mean, I was on the American Moonwatch team in 1961 or 59, 60, when the Sputnik went up. And I was a friend with a chap called Jack Bennett. He was an older man at the time. He was our Sunday school teacher, in fact. Yeah. And he worked, as he was a very prolific astronomer, he discovered a comet later on, which is today called Bennett's Comet. So he has actually got a comet named after him officially. And he, said to us that he's working for what was called the American Moonwatch team at the time. And he's looking for boys who would like to spend a night with him, usually on Friday evenings or something, I think it was. And you lie on your back on his lawn. He lived on a bit of a hill, thank heavens. And so you lie on a hill, which gave you more chance to see upwards. And you lie on your back, and he had these 5-inch telescopes provided by, I imagine, NASA or the American agency. And you didn't use a telescope; you only use it occasionally. But it was a wide-angle telescope, could hold, so 5 inches, only about this long, and it could see a very large part of the sky. And the object was to count the satellites going over, and to time them, and this was then noted and sent off to the Americans. And we were given $1 a night, right, which was at the time only about 50 South African cents, which is half a rand, or 10 shillings, I suppose you could call it then at the time, 10 shillings. But of course, 10 shillings at the time was massive. I mean, you could really go and buy a lovely shirt like you're wearing for 10 shillings easily. Of course, you wouldn't waste the whole 10 shillings on a shirt, but it was absolutely marvelous. So I got into the American Moonwatch team doing that kind of thing, and with some terrific guys who one became a head of their local what do you call it? Where they look at the stars,
Astronomers Society, and that's something.
Yes, at the local space, or no, observatory. Sunderland Observatory. He became the director. He's retired now, but so these were smart guys with me who were doing that kind of thing. Yeah.
No, it is fascinating. And Elon's made it very clear that he wants this mission to Mars, and Trump has said that that's like before the end of his presidency, assume he's elected in just a few weeks' time now, that he will ensure that before the end of it, we can start getting people to Mars. Do you think that's
really? It's not just, of course, having an approval from the government, of course, is wonderful, but in reality, it's an enormous task. I mean, it's really a task. If you said to me, we have two tasks. One is to, find a way of eliminating gravity so we can go up in the sky without being pulled down. And the other is we're trying to get rockets to go to Mars. I wouldn't be able to tell you which one is more difficult.
Right.
They're both sort of the same level of difficulty. And, it's not only getting there, it's the place is not really habitable. So they're trying to green and thinking of ways of greening Mars. And some of the ideas are really good. It's apparently, apart from the cold, it's a very good environment for plants. to grow. It's got all the ingredients for plants to thrive. If plants live on what we don't live on, that plants live on carbon dioxide, we live on oxygen. Plants emit oxygen, we emit carbon dioxide. It's very symbiotic,
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to be said for that kind of thing. And unfortunately, for the vast majority of the people in the world, it's way out of their problem zone. It's most people are really trying to just make a life for themselves and can't imagine wasting money on things like that.
And well, there's all sorts of things when we were growing up, all sorts of things we couldn't imagine other than in science fiction films, and science fiction has become science fact now, and Elon certainly
Yes.
helped with that. But presumably, he must have these conversations with Kimball, who's been doing some wonderful things with growing. We talked about his various projects there. Have they had that discussion about life on Mars?
Well, yes, we've had discussions on that since they were small. So it wasn't really, it's not a new thing or something. No. We are very academic in that respect, We do look at those things as sort of part of a responsibility we seem to have. In other words, the boys feel responsible for doing things I did anyway as well, I suppose. I became a city councillor not because I thought I'd become a politician. I thought maybe I could help to sort of improve the state of our town, which I did. And, I lived at a time when we used to have these globes hanging these incandescent globes hanging on sort of wires over the streets where I lived in Pretoria, which was the capital city. It was pretty antiquated. And being an electrical engineer, I wanted to put in high pressure sodium and, mercury and all sort of, which we have everywhere now. I wanted to do that. And when I got on council, they said, why? We've got these lights. Nobody goes out at night anyway. I said, yes, they do. And the older guy's attitude was, we don't really need lights. Everybody goes to bed at night. And I used to say, no, we need to put in proper lights. And in fact, I got the job to be the young consulting engineer on what we called Starland, which was Starland, which was a sort of a combination of small cinemas all in one center with an ice rink and everything, the first of its kind. And it opened in about 1971 or something, there was. And no, 72. And I said, look, we're having this big opening. I just become a city councillor. And we've got all these film stars coming from all over the world and all that kind of thing. And they're coming to a place which is absolutely, looks like Disneyland. But the streets outside have no lights on it. There's no lights in the street. I mean, come on. And so I made a speech in the council, and lo and behold, they agreed to put in street lighting into that area. And so that was quickly put in. And so we had decent lighting for cars to come in and everything, So, yeah. So we do things like that. And I don't think we'd actually, that's just common sense to us, common sense. I think a lot of people...
It does make common sense. And I say it's arrogant to think that there isn't life on other planets. But presumably, if we're thinking of going to other planets, what about other planets coming to us? What are your views on that?
Well, yes, we think about that a lot. Being a planet in a sort of fringe area of our galaxy, one can possibly understand why perhaps nobody comes here. I don't know. We just don't know. And coming back to what I was speaking about earlier, now you've got Elon. You asked me the other day, is Elon happy? I said, no, he would like to be where he is now 5 years ago or 6 years ago. No, he'd like to be much further ahead than he is now. And, so that, that's not difficult to understand. And, on the other side, he makes money, and he's quite prepared to throw it into, instead of going off and getting himself a nice villa in Monaco and going for drinks and everything every morning at the Hotel de Paris, which we like very much in Monaco. No. He's in some little prefab house that he lives in, and he shares with his bodyguards, and he's planning the next Starship launch. He eats food out of a box that gets delivered from a restaurant which I have on the side. Not quite nice food, though, but nothing spectacular. And you might think, well, why doesn't he rather, get himself a harem and go and live in a place where they allow harems or something and live in a sultan's palace? No. He's happy with the way he's doing things, you see.
It is fascinating, those sort of simple things in life, and people are always fascinated by that. If you've got all the money in the world, what would you do? And so, what does he do to relax?
Oh, relax. Yeah, he plays video games. He's a very big video game player, and he plays these sort of at the master level, and so he's really good at that. And now that brings me to Rush, who's now 7, my youngest son. He's a video game freak, you know. And recently, I think I mentioned he's only 7.
Yeah.
He got on my credit card, and I don't know how you do this when you're 7 years of age. And he put his name first. He put his own name on everything. That's him and his name, Musk, Elliot Musk. He calls him. We call his name's Elliot Rush. I call him Rush. His mother calls him Elliot Rush Musk. And he, put himself on all these games. And then he properly bought himself about £600 worth of games on my credit card. £600 worth of games. I mean, nobody quite knew.
Well, here he is now to complain, say, "Don't tell stories about me, Dad."
Sorry?
I thought that was Rush phoning you to say, "Don't tell stories about me."
Yeah, it's his mother. Let me just mute this. Sorry.
That's all right. No problem at all. No, it is interesting how the little ones, they can rack up these bills. And it's been a big issue for lots of families where it is that credit card. And I know you're not the only father who, or indeed only parent who's had enormous bills as a result of how easy it is for children to rack them up with somebody else's credit card.
Yes. And, I spoke to him about it. And he was very, but Dad, it's so worth it, I mean, it's really worth it, So it's very hard to get angry, and so yeah.
It is interesting. So you say Elon likes to play computer games. Do you know particular games he likes to play?
Oh no, the sort of very advanced stuff, very, very advanced. I wouldn't be able to do it. And you have to be like a concert pianist on these sort of iPads or whatever they use to be able to do this, or the controllers and stuff. I mean, you have to have your dexterity left and right has to be enormously good. And, even if you're a really good, they make these games incredibly difficult. And even if you're an expert, you don't really get very far, a lot of the time. So, no, that's what he likes doing. And he also, I noticed when things get hectic, Elon will say, I think I'm going to take my jet. He loves his jet. He's got a few, actually. He's got about 7. But one most used by the staff of the companies, because to get around is much better like that than on airlines because of the TSA and everything, delays. He'll get into his jet and decide he's going to go somewhere. And I think he relaxes on the jet. He has a masseuse on the jet and he has a chef.
Right.
So, and that's what I think that he gets a little bit of pleasure out of that. But I would say, as he said, himself has said, I don't think you'd like to be in my life. I don't think you'd like to be me, he said to people. I don't think you'd like it very much, because people have said to him, gee, it must be no, I don't think you'd really like my life. Yeah. And it's easy to understand because even if you have a small business of some kind, the entropy makes sure that every day, that no matter how well you prepare, something's going to go wrong, and probably a few things are going to go wrong. Yeah. And, that's life. So you have to do that, and a lot of us would like to get to a situation of nirvana where you don't have anything like that. Yeah. But again, that's not who we are.
But they often say it's the old Chinese curse. May you have 100 employees. I mean, Elon's obviously got hundreds of thousands, hasn't he?
Yes. And the Chinese thing is it's not about having a nothing life or doing nothing life. It's having exciting life. I hope you have an exciting life, which could mean anything, And of course, human beings are not made to be, sort of lie about. Human beings, you can try for a while, but they just can't. They've got ants in their pants. All of them, all the human beings have got ants in their pants. Yeah. So no matter what you do, they'll find whatever they thought was perfect and what they wanted so much, they get it, and it's a 6-day wonder, and boom, they want something else now.
No, you're absolutely right.
So
And what's interesting as well, there's some people who just can't relax. I mean, is Elon somebody who just lie on a beach somewhere?
no, 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 no. Well, there are times when obviously it's the time to do that, and there are times, but none of us are sort of, we used to like hobie catting a lot, at the hobie catting beaches here in South Africa. We have wonderful beaches, and we used to go hobie catting into the ocean on a little 16-foot hobie cat, which, looking back on it, again, insane, because we'd go so far to sea, we wouldn't see the land anymore.
Right.
And on a little hobie cat, mind you. And my brother went out one day at one of our most wonderful beaches, Plettenberg Bay, which is probably one of the best beaches in the world. And luckily, he took his lady at the time, and the beach had become deserted, and it got to about 6 o'clock in the evening, and he hadn't come back. And so thank heaven she was there. She decided to go and see the NSRI, which is the Sea Rescue Institute. And they probably sent a powerboat out to sea, and they found him with his sail down and lying on the hobie cat because he couldn't get back. And he'd given up, and he was going to be towed out to sea by the Benguela current, and probably would have wound up in Antarctica or something, But so that's the kind of thing we kind of think is fun.
Oh, no. But it's good. I love those adventures. No, we all like the computer games. As you know, my background is an intellectual property lawyer, and I did the very first licenses for Formula One for computer game rights and things like that. And it's amazing, the technology. And actually, most people can't survive being a real Formula One driver because the force, the pressure on that sort of stuff is too much. But you can sort of get incredibly realistic. And looking at that sort of side in computer games and various other things, it's escapism now, isn't it? Well, look, talk about escapism. We're going to take a break. I'm delighted that people are watching the artwork behind you. Kandinsky, yellow, red, and blue is what it's called, just a future reference. So all good stuff. But for now, Errol Musk, thank you for joining me.
Okay.